Moskowitz didn't walk into that hearing expecting a fight with Pam Bondi's Justice Department or a debate over the Epstein files. But that's exactly what happened. What began as a routine discussion on free speech turned into one of the most uncomfortable, revealing exchanges on Capitol Hill in months. When Moskowitz pressed the visiting witness on why he was leaving early and whether he was meeting with the president, the room went quiet. Something about the way the witness dodged every question, refusing to say where he was going, hinted that this wasn't just about scheduling. It was about secrets. Then Moskowitz dropped the question that no one saw coming. Had the witness heard about the Epstein thing?
Tell me what you're doing this afternoon?
Free speech is one thing, discretion's quite another too.
Okay. All right, so you're leaving to have lunch with the president. So, Mr. Farage, I have a question. Have you heard about the Epstein thing that's going on here?
I have.
You have. What do you think about it?
I'm not going to give comment on anything happening in America. I'm here as a witness.
Perfect.
I'm here as a witness.
I'm
here as a witness for what is happening in the United Kingdom and in the European.
Perfect. Let me just go through it. So it's been 9 months, right, since we've been meeting in these hearings. We've not had Pam Bondi here, even though we have jurisdiction over the Department of Justice. Not Dan Bungie.
The gentleman yield.
Not Kash Patel. I will 100%. We'll go back and forth. Let me just do my thing.
Okay. Well, I'm just going to correct. Kash Patel's coming in 2. I'll give you an extra 10 seconds. Kash Patel, the director of FBI, is coming in 2 weeks, and the Attorney General's coming in 4 weeks.
Fantastic. But still, we're not doing that this week. The week we're having votes on the Epstein thing. So, Pam Bondi gives the influencers, these Republican influencers, a binder. It says Part 1 of the Epstein files. No one of you saw it. It was quite spectacular. The Attorney General then says the Epstein list is on her desk. Then DOJ issues a memo, says there is no list. Then, do you have any questions about any of that? We've had no hearings on any of that at all. That, the list is on my desk, then there is no list. Then we gave binders to Republican influencers. This committee's had no questions on any of how that transpired at the Department of Justice. Then hold on.
Well, it sounds like you're going to in the next few weeks. So that's a jolly good thing.
Mr. Farage, we can talk soon, but not yet. Okay.
Right.
So then the president comes out and says the whole thing's a hoax. He blasts his own base. He blames Barack Obama. I mean, he hasn't been president for a very long time. Republicans then in committee vote against the release in the Rules Committee. Then Republicans refuse to go back in the Rules Committee because they're getting blasted for their vote, getting crushed by their own base. Congress leaves a day early. Then the administration sends the Deputy Attorney General to meet with Maxwell in jail. He happens to be Trump's former personal attorney. She says something favorable about the president. Miraculously, she gets transferred to a minimum security prison. The president starts talking about how he has the right to pardon her if he wanted to. The leaks to the Wall Street Journal then stop. We come back from break. We have the Massey petition. Comer does a document dump where 97% of these documents are already public. How long has he had those documents? Why hasn't he released them for the last 6 weeks? Does it the day of the vote. Then Republicans drop a non-binding resolution trying to kill the Massey discharge petition. The White House said passing the Massey discharge petition is a hostile act. Wow. That's a lot of distraction and deflection and misinformation. Wait, passing a discharge petition to release the Epstein files, the White House said would be a hostile act. Nope, we have no questions about that. But why? Why is it that we're spending so much political capital to keep this list from coming out? You think the list should come out? You think we should know the people who dealt with Mr. Epstein, Mr. Farage?
I thought I was coming to a hearing on free speech, not process.
Oh, well, listen, but here's the good...
It sounds like you're discussing process.
No. Do you think the list should come out?
I have no opinion on it. I don't know at all.
So we have victims that were sexually abused by potentially people in power, and we don't know who's on the list.
I'm very happy.
Hold on, Mr. Farage. We don't know who's on the list. We don't know who's on the list. We don't know if the president is or is not. I'm not going to say he is or isn't. I'm just going to say these are weird behaviors. We don't know that there aren't other people in Congress that are on the list. Right? We have no idea. Do you think the list should come out? You think people in power should be held to account for these victims who have been sexually abused and assaulted? You think the list should come out?
I think that I'm very happy to come to a different hearing where you talk about legal process.
Okay.
But today,
Will the gentleman yield for a quick question?
I will.
Were you aware that he has already called for the Epstein file to be released? It has been reported that he has called for it to be released.
Oh yeah, right here, just to refresh your memory.
Yeah, but
I happen to have this.
But that's not
How
what
random.
But that is not. Look, you can ask me if you like about
Do you agree
social
with
security
yourself?
policy.
Do you agree with yourself?
We are here to discuss free speech.
Hold on, it's awkward for your lunch after this? Do you agree with yourself?
No, it isn't at all.
Okay. Mr. Chairman, I'm just curious. This committee has jurisdiction over the
Gentleman's
Department of
time.
Justice.
Yeah.
Why have we allowed Comer to cover this up for the last couple of months?
As I said,
why is this committee not
I
taking
said 6
jurisdiction?
weeks ago that we will have the FBI director in, we will have the attorney general in, and we are doing that in 2 weeks. You can ask you can go through that whole list. That whole list, you can do whatever you want to do with, I got lots of questions for the FBI director, including the whistleblower who came forward and told him that Adam Schiff leaked classified information. I want to ask him about that as well as the issues you all want to ask him about. That's why he's coming, so we can ask all these questions and follow the process, as Mr. Farage just talked about.
Mr.
The
Chairman,
gentleman from Virginia.
unanimous consent.
Unanimous consent?
I'd like to enter the political article into the record that Mr. Farage said the Epstein file should be released.
Without objection. The gentleman from Virginia is recognized.
I thank the chairman. I want to talk about censorship tools that are being used by Europe and protectionist measures that have major consequences for U.S. companies and free expression.
The answer, nervous, defensive, and quick, made it clear that even across the Atlantic, the story had become radioactive. 9 months of hearings, and still no appearance from Pam Bondi, even though her department controls the very records everyone's been demanding. That timeline alone sent a message. Someone, somewhere, was stalling. And when Moskowitz began connecting the dots, Bondi's binder handed to partisan influencers the claim that the Epstein list was sitting on her desk, the department's sudden memo insisting there was no list at all. The air in the chamber shifted from curiosity to disbelief. The contradictions piled up fast. A binder appears, a list disappears, and an attorney general insists everything is fine. The story feels less like bureaucratic confusion and more like an intentional tangle designed to exhaust anyone looking for answers. When information is controlled this tightly, every change in language becomes suspect. And right as the committee tried to move forward, another twist arrived. Talk of internal meetings, the White House, and political operatives whispering that releasing the Epstein files would be considered a hostile act. Moskowitz refused to let that go. Why would transparency be treated as hostility? Why would the Department of Justice need influencers instead of investigators? His questions turned into an indictment of process itself. He laid out how members of Congress had voted against releasing the files, only to backpedal when their own base revolted. Hearings canceled, schedules rearranged, staff sent home early. And then the strangest development of all, a deputy attorney general, reportedly a former personal lawyer for the president, visiting Ghislaine Maxwell in prison. Days later, Maxwell was transferred to a lower security facility. Coincidence, they said. But coincidences don't usually arrive in clusters. Each step built the impression of a pattern: distraction, delay, deflection. When the administration dismissed the entire controversy as a hoax, the meaning was unmistakable: shift attention, deny accountability, and hope the public loses interest. But this time, the dots connected too neatly. A binder that conveniently surfaces right before a vote. A memo contradicting its own agency's words. A political appointee making an unannounced visit to a convicted accomplice. Then, an official statement labeling transparency itself as an act of aggression. The pieces didn't just fail to add up, they formed an entirely new equation. The heart of Moskowitz's argument wasn't partisan. It was procedural. Oversight, he reminded everyone, is a chain of custody issue. If one day the Attorney General says the list is on my desk, and the next day the department claims it doesn't exist, then something happened between those moments that must be traced and explained. Who accessed the documents? Who authorized their release or their disappearance? And why were partisan content creators the ones holding evidence that should have been secured in a congressional vault? That's when the hearing stopped being about free speech and became a conversation about faith. Faith in justice. Faith in institutions, faith in the idea that power isn't immune from scrutiny. Every denial, every disappearing document, deepens a wound for survivors who were promised accountability. They stepped forward believing the system would finally deliver. Each delay feels like a betrayal, every contradiction like another reminder that truth bends when it threatens the powerful. Moskowitz's calm tone turned heavy. These are not abstract files or political trophies. They are testimonies of people whose lives were shattered. Behind the noise of procedure and politics lies a very real human cost. Survivors who risked their safety to speak are forced to watch their cases reduced to talking points. Each new update that leads nowhere tells them the same thing. Justice moves only when convenient. And every time an official insists that there is no list, it echoes as disbelief in the ears of those who know better. The cruelty isn't just in what's being hidden. It's in making victims relive the cover dash-up. Oh, what would real oversight look like? Moskowitz outlined it step by step. A closed, secure committee briefing where members can review the sensitive documents without public grandstanding. A chain of custody logs showing who touched which file and when. An independent special counsel or inspector general empowered to determine if prosecutorial discretion crossed into obstruction. Transparency, he argued, doesn't mean dumping evidence online. It means controlled access, redaction of victim names, and publication of enablers and financiers whose crimes are already supported by existing evidence. That's how you protect privacy and still honor the promise of justice. Instead, the country got theater. Document dumps where 97% of the pages were already public. Leaks timed for votes. Press briefings that contradicted memos released hours earlier. The chaos is the point. The louder the confusion, the easier it becomes for accountability to fade. But even chaos leaves fingerprints, small, consistent details that show where the trail was cleaned up and who signed the order. And Moskowitz made sure every one of those details was spoken into the record. He didn't stop at criticism. He called for action. He urged the public to demand transparency, not gossip. To pressure representatives into asking direct questions. Where are the original binders? Who authorized their distribution? Why did Maxwell's custody status change immediately after a private meeting? And on whose authority was that meeting approved? These are questions that don't require speculation, only documentation. The fact that none of those answers exist in the public record is, by itself, evidence of neglect. What makes this story resonate isn't just political intrigue. It's the underlying question of what kind of justice system people want to live under. One that protects reputations or one that protects victims. A culture that hides behind procedure or one that confronts the evidence, no matter how uncomfortable. The idea of responsible transparency isn't utopian. It's the bare minimum for public trust. Releasing files with redactions, safeguarding survivors' identities, and empowering independent review are not radical demands. They're the blueprint for credibility. The longer officials treat truth as a liability, the more corrosive the fallout becomes. Secrecy doesn't just protect the guilty. It poisons every institution that enables it. People start assuming that every closed door hides corruption. Every redaction becomes a conspiracy. That loss of faith spreads faster than any rumor. And once it's gone, no memo, no press conference, no carefully worded denial can bring it back. That's why Moskowitz's confrontation mattered. He didn't uncover new evidence. He exposed the absence of answers. In an age of leaks and live streams, silence speaks louder than denial. A government confident in its integrity wouldn't need to hide behind process. It would show the receipts, answer the questions, and let facts speak for themselves. But the longer those receipts stay buried, the more powerful the suspicion becomes. Oh, where does this go next? The hearing ended without resolution, but not without impact. The clip went viral because people recognized something familiar in it, the feeling that those in charge always seem to know more than they'll say. Whether you believe this is incompetence, political calculation, or something darker, one truth remains. Sunlight still scares the powerful. And until that changes, accountability will always arrive late. Dressed as scandal instead of standard procedure, Moskowitz's closing remarks cut through the noise. This isn't about partisanship. It's about preservation, of truth, of justice, of faith that no one, no matter how connected, can outlast exposure. That's the principle that built public trust. And it's the one being tested right now. If you've made it this far, you already understand why this matters. Don't let this story fade like the others. Share this video so the pressure stays public. Demand that your representatives call for the secure briefing and the independent review. Support survivor-led organizations that fight for transparency. And if you want to keep following the trail as it unfolds, make sure to subscribe, hit the like button, and turn on notifications. The story isn't over, and the next chapter may finally reveal what those binders were really hiding.